Hey guys, and welcome to NPP. I'm your host, Julian Lawrence, and today we are going to be discussing a hot button issue, something that has been in the political spectrum for quite some time now and also discussed on social media at length. The topic today is immigration. Now, some Americans believe that we should be isolationist and cut ourselves off from the rest of the world, while others believe we should have open borders and allow people to kind of come and go as they please. But the majority of Americans lie somewhere in between. This is a spectrum, it is not black and white. Our goal for today is to kind of flesh out what are the issues, if any, associated with immigration and our policies. So, the first thing I want to talk about is that in 2016, when President Trump uh, announced his candidacy, he said that we are basically getting their criminals. So when we're talking about South American countries, when we're talking about Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, uh, El Salvador, and some of these other countries, what President Trump implied was that, or basically what he said outright, was that we are getting the criminals from these countries. And if that's the case, that is definitely cause for concern. Now, there was a poll done by Pew Research, and Pew is a research center that does statistics for a lot of different ideas and opinions when it comes to politics. Pew found that 62% of Americans believe that immigrants are more of a strength than a burden. So let's kind of find out what's going on with immigration and address some of the concerns. So, on social media, one of the biggest concerns that I have heard, and I'm sure many of you have heard, is the issue of the economy. Well, it is said that we just can't support immigrants, and they are coming over here and are becoming more of a burden. They're getting on welfare and they're a drain on the system. They're a drain on taxpayer dollars. And if that is true, then that is definitely cause for concern. What we find, though, is that according to some studies done by marketplace.org and a few other sources, that immigrants in 2018 were actually responsible for $13 billion in tax revenue. So, what that means is that this is aggregate, by the way. So, this is cost and benefits rolled into one. We land on $13 billion, which is a nice chunk of change. Now, the next issue that we come across is the issue of crime. Immigrants, according to Pew Research and a few other sources, commit far fewer crimes than American citizens. I guess the logic behind this is that when they come here, they want to keep their heads down. They want to keep their noses clean, so to speak. The last thing they want to do is get involved in some activity that will get them deported. The idea is that immigrants, when they come to this country, they are in search of a better life. When we do further research, we see that in El Salvador and Guatemala and a lot of these countries, these Central and South American countries, we see that they have very high crime rates, and the general consensus is that immigrants are looking for a better life because they fear for their own safety and for the safety of their families. It's a legitimate concern. The next argument that I've heard a few times, not so often, but still heard it, is the fact that, this is a time when terrorism is something that we have to worry about. Well, there's been some studies done, according to an article by The Atlantic and also a study done by the Cato Institute, that terrorism does not come from Central and South America. In fact, between 1975 and the present, virtually no terrorist acts have come from people originating in those countries. Terrorism is largely carried out by American citizens. The other incidents of terrorism have been carried out by people who come from countries east of here, so not Central American countries, not South American countries. So we find that terrorism is of little concern when we're talking about people from south of the border. The final argument that we hear, and this is probably the best argument that I've heard, is that they need to just gain legal entry. They need to be documented. We need to know that they're here, and they need to pay taxes. And that is completely reasonable, 100% reasonable. Now, the issue with this is that when people come here, they have to apply for asylum, or many people apply for asylum. The issue with the asylum process is that on average, it takes 6 months to be considered for asylum. Couple that with the fact that after that 6 months of processing, in 2018, over 65% of asylum applicants were denied. So the problem that we have, or the issue that we find, is that if someone's coming here looking for a better life, and they're looking to increase the quality of life for themselves and their family, for example, getting away from countries with extremely high murder rates, what's happening is when they come here, they realize that it's going to be really hard to get in after having to go through this extremely long waiting process. So what do we do about this? What's going to be the solution here? Well, another part of this legal entry argument is the fact that many Americans have ancestors that were immigrants. And an argument is, well, my ancestors got here legally. So why can't these people do the same thing? If my ancestors had to wait, why can't these people wait? Well, that is a story told by history. So we look at 1907 specifically. Over 1 million immigrants came to the United States from Europe in 1907. Now, the difference between immigrants coming to this country now from south of the border and immigrants coming from Europe in 1907 is that virtually all immigrants from Europe in 1907 were not only accepted, but their waiting time was a matter of hours. They were processed same day. So you would come to the United States, you would get off of the boat, you would go to Ellis Island, and a few hours later you were released. You were in the United States and you were looking to increase your quality of life. You were looking for work. You were, hitting the streets trying to make a living for your family. You weren't waiting 6 months. There wasn't a chance, or there wasn't a 65% chance that your ability to enter the United States would be denied. In light of this gives people incentive to want to go ahead and sneak in. So really the answer is to the only real problem is that people are coming here illegally. And if we're going to fix that, let's just streamline the process. What we need to do is we need to make it easier for immigrants to come here and work, or come here and gain citizenship. This is not to say that we should just open the borders. I think that's dangerous. I don't agree with that. I do believe that we do need some vetting process. But if people have to wait 2 weeks, maybe even a month to be vetted, and there's a good chance that they'll be admitted, then that's a much better setup than having to wait 6 months and having over a 65% chance of being denied. So maybe that's it. Maybe we just need to streamline the process, and that will make all of our problems associated, or perceived problems associated with immigration, go away. Thank you for tuning in. This has been another episode of NPP. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe, share it with your friends, and tune in next time on NPP.